in northern Iraq yesterday after being fired upon by Iraqi forces while patrolling a no-fly zone. The U.S. European Command base in Stuttgart, Germany, says Iraqi forces fired anti-aircraft artillery at coalition planes near the northern city of Mosul. Coalition aircraft responded in self-defense to the Iraqi attacks by dropping precision-guided munitions.
An American man in Monte Carlo, Monaco, who hatched a bizarre scheme to keep his $600 a day job as a private nurse, was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison yesterday for setting a fire that instead killed his employer, billionaire banker Edmund Safra. Ted Maher, a former U.S. Army Green Beret, stood motionless and silent as the court in Monaco sentenced him. His wife left the courthouse in tears, while the widow of Safra said justice has been done.
7 new plans for the World Trade Center site will be unveiled December 18th, with a final plan chosen in February. That's according to the head of the agency charged with redeveloping Ground Zero. The proposals will each preserve the footprints of the 110 twin towers for a memorial, says Lewis Thompson, president of the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation.
Space Shuttle Endeavour undocked from the International Space Station yesterday and headed for home with the 1 American and 2 Russians who spent the past 6 months aboard the orbiting outpost. Endeavour is due back on Earth tomorrow, though storms are forecast for Cape Canaveral and could delay the long overdue homecoming for the crew. They spent an extra month and a half aloft because of various shuttle problems. Yesterday was their 180th day in orbit.
Police in Florida say a Boy Scout leader faces charges that he fondled at least 3 members of his troop and showed them gay pornographic photos. Robert King was held in Brevard County Jail on $70,000 bail on Sunday.
Thank you, Steve. And in your weather watch this morning, north and central Europe will have mostly cloudy skies today. Rain showers as well, temperatures in the 40s. Southern Europe, partly to mostly cloudy skies today, temps in the 50s and 60s. Over in the Balkans, mostly cloudy with some rain, some fog this morning as well. Temps reaching into the 50s. Turkey, mostly cloudy for you, some rain showers expected, highs in the 60s. And in Bagram, Afghanistan, good morning to you. Sunny skies today, temps in the 60s.
Today's U.S. dollar exchange rates. 1 U.S. dollar buys 0.9875 euro, 1.41 Swiss francs, 7.10 Danish kroner, and 1 British pound will cost $1.58 today. It's 33 minutes past the top of the hour. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us. The address is newswatch@afn.frankfurt.army.mil. We'd love to hear from you. AFN's Morning Newswatch continues. After the break, we'll have your AFRTS news and Air Force radio news. Stay with us.
Do it, whatever it is.
Do it at USAVE Skills Center today. Learn woodworking, quilting, scrapbooking, and more all in your spare time. Head over to the Auto Skills Center for a do-it-yourself tune-up under the eye of an experienced mechanic. The Auto Skills Center provides you with everything you need to keep your vehicle running smoothly. See what USAVE Skills Centers can offer you.
Do it. Whatever it is. Do it.
Welcome to the Customs Man Show. I'm Leon Phelps, taking your calls. Caller, you're on with the Customs Man.
Hi, Customs Man. My parents are coming to visit me, and I was wondering, can I give them my car to drive around Europe?
No, sweet mama, that's not cool. But that's a great question. Like, it's illegal to drive while sipping Cavassier. It's also against the law for guests to drive your car without you in it. They must also have a valid stateside driver's license. This has been your Customs Man? Yeah, that's right.
How nice it is to be smoking a 10-inch Cuban Presidente cigar.
In those days, we were glad to smoke a Cuban Churchill.
Oh, we never had Churchills.
Well, I was always happier back then smoking a Corona.
We used to dream of smoking a Corona.
Corona? You were lucky. We used to get a box of cigarillos if we were good.
Luxury. We used to go to the store to buy Cuban cigars, take them to the States, and share them with all our friends and sing hallelujah.
And you try telling people that today, and they won't believe you.
You're right.
Cuban cigars are illegal in the States. Don't bring them home.
Hi, I'd like to thank you. With your support and the support of APHIS, Army Morale, Welfare, and Recreation is investing $27.9 million into bowling centers across Europe. These improvements are for the people who keep us strong and keep us safe. They're for you, for your family, and your friends, because you are the focus for Army MWR.
AFRTS News. Army Sergeant Chris Mitchell reporting from Washington. U.S. troops overseas will soon have an opportunity to read and own some classic literature free of charge. Some 100,000 small paperback books are being produced exclusively for the U.S. Armed Forces in a revival of a popular World War II program. The project kicked off late last month at the Pentagon, where a lunchtime crowd received information and free copies of these new old books. Andrew Carroll organized the project.
What we're trying to do is bring back what's called the Armed Services Editions, or ASEs. They gave out 120 million of these little paperback books. They did all different titles during World War II, and they sent them all throughout the world. And so what we want to do is bring back these books.
At the height of the program during World War II, more than 1,300 titles were made into Armed Services editions, many of them bestsellers and classics. Mr. Carroll, who authored one of this era's books, says they're being brought back in exactly the same familiar format as the originals back in the 40s.
They can fit into a cargo pocket, they're easy to carry around, and so we're going to ship out about 100,000 of these to the troops on warships, on land, all over the world.
Mr. Carroll says the project is a way of recognizing and thanking those who serve our country.
We've been working on this project for several years. It was before 9/11, but I think there's a greater appreciation now for what our men and women in uniform are doing for this nation. This is a very small token of our, especially those of us who are civilians, of saying thank you for what you're doing.
If you'd like more information on the free book project, you can email Andrew Carroll directly at warletterproject@aol.com. And that's our report. For the Department of Defense, I'm Army Sergeant Chris Mitchell at the AFRTS News Center in Washington.
From the Air Force News Service, this is Air Force Radio News.
I'm Tech Sergeant Joni Hogsey. Operation Southern Watch aircraft are dropping more than bombs on the Iraqi military. Air crews have made the 5th drop in 2 months of warning leaflets. The latest 360,000 leaflets, written in Arabic, warn members of the Iraqi military not to rebuild missile sites destroyed by coalition aircraft. The latest destruction came this past weekend when crews bombed 2 military sites south of Baghdad. The name of a key Air Force directorate has been changed in an effort to inspire innovation and better reflect the service's emphasis on its warfighting efforts. The Directorate of Operational Requirements is now called Operational Capability Requirements. The shift in names reflects the Air Force Chief of Staff's vision that warfighting and the capabilities needed to achieve it drives everything the Air Force does. 2 Air Force pilots who successfully landed their U-2 reconnaissance aircraft after losing nearly all their electrical power have been honored for their efforts in saving the aircraft and their own lives. As Staff Sergeant Lee Bellinger explains, the emergency had never happened before.
Major Mike Means and Captain Steve Rodriguez were flying at 70,000 feet in a U-2 in September of last year when the trouble began. An electrical malfunction caused the aircraft systems to shut down. With no checklist to guide them, the 2 began a 90-minute descent back to Beale Air Force Base in California with only a magnetic compass. Those problems weren't enough to ruin their day. They had no speed brakes and flaps. Added to that was the fact that there was no way to dump excess fuel to lighten their load. Despite all the problems, Means and Rodriguez made it safely back to base. Staff Sergeant Lee Bellinger, Air Force News.
This is Air Force Radio News. Reliable transportation intelligence is crucial for air crews traveling to unstable parts of the world. Now, the U.S. Transportation Command's Joint Intelligence Center has a new tool for managing that information. The new system allows Intelligence Center analysts to post intelligence information on the Internet. This replaces the cumbersome paper-based system that often took months to get information to customers. The Repair Enhancement Program at Dyess Air Force Base in Texas has been recognized for saving more than $5 million last year by repairing and reusing assets instead of ordering new ones. The program questions why items are being thrown away or paying repair costs for items that could be repaired locally. The initiatives at Dyess range from B-1 equipment to aircraft fuel lines, wire harnesses, and even fitness equipment. The Veterans History Project is gaining recognition across the country. The collection includes a growing number of memoirs, letters, and interviews telling the stories of veterans who served in World Wars I and II and the Korean, Vietnam, and Persian Gulf Wars. In the past year alone, the project staff has collected more than 14,000 items that have become a part of the growing exhibit. The collection is housed in the American Folklore Center at the Library of Congress. Many families in the Air Force use home-based businesses to supplement their income. Staff Sergeant Pachari Ludke explains what procedures have to be followed.
Before setting up shop in base housing, airmen need special referrals and approvals. 3 different agencies must review and approve the business plan. It's another way to make sure no military or civilian laws are broken and that home businesses won't compete with the base commissary or exchange. Airmen are also barred from using their grade, title, or position in connection with any commercial enterprise. Staff Sergeant Pachari Ludke, Air Force News.
Air Force pilot Francis Hode was presented the Distinguished Flying Cross for helping land a battle-damaged B-17 more than a half-century ago. The Flying Fortress was returning from a mission over Germany when it was hit by anti-aircraft fire. Hode, a first lieutenant at the time, helped the pilot gain control of the aircraft and ordered the crew to bail out once they were over friendly territory. Hode made 3 attempts to land the damaged aircraft before he had to set the bomber down in a nearby field after the aircraft's landing gear hit a house. The Air Force has been honored with 3 Defense Department Achievement Awards. The Value Engineering Honors identify ways to reduce operating costs in areas like services, supplies, equipment, and facilities. The Test Squadron from Holloman Air Force Base, New Mexico, was selected in the organization category. In the program category, it was the Space and Nuclear Deterrence Command and Control Office at Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts. The third category, for individuals, went to Bruce Lair from Hill Air Force Base, Utah. That's it for this edition of Air Force Radio News. From the Air Force News Service, I'm Tech Sergeant Joni Hogsey.
And good morning, Europe. It's 7:42 Central European Time. I'm Army Sergeant Hank Minitrez alongside Air Force Sergeant Steve German. You're listening to AFN's Morning Newswatch.
It was combed over by inspectors, then blasted for days by U.S. air attack. But 4 years later, the Karama Ballistic Design Plant is still a focus of world concern, a place where new UN inspectors conducted their longest search yet yesterday, looking for signs of outlawed Iraqi missiles. After 6 hours in the well-guarded Baghdad compound, they departed, and the plant's deputy director said all went well, saying they didn't find anything.
U.S. warplanes bombed an air defense site in northern Iraq yesterday after being fired upon by Iraqi forces while patrolling a no-fly zone. The U.S. European Command based in Stuttgart, Germany, says Iraqi forces fired anti-aircraft artillery, or AAA, at coalition planes near the northern city of Mosul. Coalition aircraft responded in self-defense to the Iraqi attacks by dropping precision-guided munitions.
An American man in Monte Carlo, Monaco, who hatched a bizarre scheme to keep his $600 a day job as a private nurse, was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison yesterday for setting fire that instead killed his employer, billionaire banker Edmund Safra. Ted Mayer, a former U.S. Army Green Beret, stood motionless and silent as the court in Monaco sentenced him. His wife left the courthouse in tears while the widow of Safra said justice has been done.
Police in Florida say a Boy Scout leader faces charges that he fondled at least 3 members of his troop and showed them gay pornographic photos. Robert King was held in Brevard County Jail on $75,000 bail Sunday after police charged him with lewd and lascivious molestation and exposure of sexual organs. King, who is married, confessed that he exposed himself and showed the troop members pornography. That's a brief look at your headlines this morning. Of course, we'll have more at the top of the hour, but right now, back over to Steve for a look at today's weather.
In your weather watch this morning, North and Central Europe can expect mostly cloudy skies and rain, highs in the 40s. Southern Europe, partly to mostly cloudy skies, highs in the 50s and 60s. The Balkans, mostly cloudy, rain and fog, highs in the 50s. Turkey, mostly cloudy and rain, highs in the 60s. And at Bagram, Afghanistan, sunny skies today, highs in the 60s.
And in today's exchange rates, $1 buys 0.9875 euros, 1.41 Swiss franc, 7.10 Danish kroner, and 1 British pound costs $1.58. It's 7:45 Central European Time. Coming up next, the AFN Sports page. We'll have a look at your TV lineup. And, of course, At the top of the hour, we'll be back with headlines. If you'd like to contact us, let us know how we're doing or offer some comments or suggestions. The email address is newswatch@afn.frankfurt.army.mil.
Now, the AFN Sports Page.
The Raiders win. Hello again, everybody. I'm Air Force Sergeant Tony Cash. We'll cut right to the chase. The Oakland Raiders grabbed a share of first place in the AFC West, holding off the New York Jets 26-20 in their fourth straight win. The Raiders opened a 23-13 lead in the third quarter, with Rich Gannon tossing a 26-yard TD pass to Jerry Rice and Zach Crockett running in from 1 yard out. The Crockett TD was set up when New York's Chad Morton fumbled a punt. The Jets pulled within 3 with just 5.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter when Chad Pennington tossed a 13-yard scoring strike to Wayne Corbett. Sebastian Janikowski's fourth field goal of the night with 1:12 left provided the final margin. The game featured 2 milestones for Raiders receiver Tim Brown. First, he became just the third NFL player to get 1,000 career receptions. Then he passed James Lofton for second place in the all-time receiving yards category. Gannon completed 32 of 43 passes for 351 yards. He tied an NFL record with his 9th 300-yard game of the season. The Raiders are now tied with San Diego atop the AFC West with an 8-4 record. The Raiders and Chargers meet each other next Sunday. The Jets had their 4-game winning streak snapped and fell to 6-6. Let's check out the NBA now. John Stockton's 22 points and 10 assists led the Utah Jazz to a 102-91 victory over the Indiana Pacers. The Jazz hit a number on Reggie Miller, holding him scoreless. It's the first time since 1989 he's been held without a point. Karl Malone chipped in with 21 points for Utah, which won for the 7th time in 8 games and snapped the Pacers' 4-game winning streak. Jermaine O'Neal led Indiana with 25. Travis Best keyed Miami's 100-90 victory over Phoenix. He made the tie-in layup with 37 seconds left in regulation and then scored all 3 Miami's field goals in the extra session. Best missed his first 9 shots of the game, but then caught fire, hitting 5 buckets in a row. He finished with 16 points, 8 in OT, including 2 3-pointers. Eddie Jones led the Heat with 21 points, and rookie Caron Butler added 20. Sean Marion topped the Suns with 30. The Dallas Mavericks won their 9th straight home game, turning back the Toronto Raptors 113-102. Steve Nash poured in 25 points, including 7 during a key fourth-quarter run. Dirk Nowitzki added 23 points, and Nick Van Exel scored 17 off the bench for Dallas, which ran its overall record to a league-best 16-1. Alvin Williams led the Raptors with 27 points. The New York Knicks handed Cleveland its 15th straight loss, 125-93. Allen Houston had 29, and Kurt Thomas had 22. He also added 6 blocks for the Knickerbockers. And Paul Pierce's 27 points led the Boston Celtics to a 102-97 victory over the Orlando Magic. In the lone hockey game on Monday, Brian Giante scored at 2:51 of overtime to give the New Jersey Devils a 1-0 victory over the Philadelphia Flyers. That's your sports page. I'm Air Force Sergeant Tony Castro, AFN Sports.
The Dragon Warriors to the 5th Signal Command are a dedicated group of soldiers and civilians. Located in Mannheim, Germany since 1974, they are a trained and ready forward-deployed signal force providing information to Army, joint, and multinational operations in U.S. EUCOM. Visit the 5th Signal Command Dragon Warriors online at 5sigcmd1.hquusurer.army.mil.
Have you heard? There's a new website. It's MWR-Europe.com. Want to go whitewater rafting? MWR-Europe.com has a phone and location directory of every MWR facility in Europe. Need the latest guidelines on using tax relief? MWR-Europe.com has up-to-date information on all sorts of services available to soldiers, family members, and civilians living in Europe. Looking for something to do this weekend? MWR-Europe.com is your source for a host of things to do and places to go. MWR-Europe.com, the site that enriches your life with all the MWR information you've been looking for.
Welcome once again to the Customs Man Show, voted UCOM's idol by a panel of judges. Today we're talking about sending gifts home. There are a few items that can't be sent in the mail, such as candy filled with alcohol, alcoholic beverages, and meat products. So that goose liver pate you got, you can't send that to the States. Besides,
It's gonna make you puke!
Finally, make sure your customs form is filled out correctly. Falsifying a custom form is a crime, and you could do serious time. Hey, that's a rhyme. This has been your Customs Man. Yeah, that's right.
EUCOM's Command Sergeant Major John Mercino.
The Combined Federal Campaign is the largest and most significant charity drive in the world.
The more than 1,400 participating organizations provide each one of us with a unique opportunity to give generously to causes which serve those less fortunate than you and I. And many of those dollars come right back to serve us here in Europe. So when your CFC representative comes to call, please take a few minutes and choose the charity that's right for you. Regardless of the amount, please give.
You're listening to AFN Morning Newswatch on the Power Network. I'm Chief Petty Officer Jacqueline Keel. It's Tuesday, December 3rd. Taking a look at what's coming up tonight on AFN Television. Beginning at 5:30, the latest from CNN Headline News comes your way, followed by AFN Newsline, where we bring you more news more often. ESPN News at 6 has the latest sports scores. Then at 6:30, it's back to Atlanta for more CNN Headline News. And here's what's coming up in your primetime lineup.
AFN Primetime Tonight. The power of persuasion gets Jonathan to do the unthinkable.
Your father sold the farm to Bob Rickman.
On Smallville, then on the AFN Primetime Movie. In a world where danger is all around us, perhaps the greatest threat to us all is... to...
Because he watches television all the time.
Kathleen Turner, Christopher Lloyd, and Kim Cattrall. Baby Geniuses. AFN Primetime Tonight.
Making holes without making noise. That's Science Updates coming up. Melting with microwaves. I'm Bob Hirschon, and this is Science Update. Drills are noisy and dusty. But now, engineers at Israel's Tel Aviv University have invented a drill that makes holes without making noise. Eliyahu Jerby says that instead of using a spinning drill bit, their device bores holes with a focused beam of microwaves. The drill generates microwaves and channels the energy down a cable to an antenna. The antenna then makes contact with the material.
The material is melted, and then the antenna itself becomes a drilling bit. So it has also a mechanical function. It becomes a drilling bit and penetrates into the molten material, remove it, and continue the radiation further.
Jerby says the drill works well on non-metallic materials like concrete, plastics, and wood. The first applications will likely be industrial, since the system can be easily integrated into automatic production lines.
Another group of applications is the construction works. But I would, at the moment, limit that to professional workers and not to the do-it-yourself amateur, simply because of the safety consideration.
But he adds that a home version of the microwave drill would come in handy for, say, hanging a picture without disturbing the neighbors. For the American Association for the Advancement of Science, I'm Bob Hirschon.
Could caffeine be what researchers are calling it, America's newest nicotine? That the caffeine in soda pop is an additive intended to hook consumers? Hi, I'm Pam Smith with a tip for living well. We do know this, that this is one nation under caffeination. The average American adult drinks 54.5 gallons of soft drinks per year, and the fastest growing in popularity is Mountain Dew, the top brand carrying the most jolt. We also know caffeine's energy boost is short-term and that it's a diuretic. It can cause restlessness, insomnia, or irregular heartbeat, not to mention disqualification from the Olympics. Our problem comes when we grow dependent upon its fix, looking for energy in all the wrong places. For tips on kicking the habit, visit my website at pamsmith.com or call 1-800-896-4010. I'm Pam Smith.
Being over your ideal body weight by 20% or more is considered obesity. It contributes to coronary risk factors such as high blood pressure and cholesterol, which may lead to a heart attack. However, by maintaining your ideal body weight, you can decrease your risk of a heart attack by 35 to 55%. A regular exercise program and proper diet can help you obtain a healthier heart, as well as lose weight and manage stress. Be heart smart. A message from the U.S. Army Reserve.
This is an AFRTS News Minute. I'm Jim Langdon. U.S. military personnel around the world can receive messages of support and encouragement from home this holiday season, thanks to an initiative called Message from America. Supported by a coalition of companies, including Circuit City, Sony Electronics, and CBS, along with the Department of Defense and the USO. The effort allows the public to visit any of more than 600 Circuit City superstores to record messages to family members or more general holiday greetings to the troops.
God bless America.
Those messages will be shown around the world through the American Forces Radio and Television Service. The public can record their messages free of charge anytime from now through New Year's Eve. That's an AFRTS News Minute. I'm Jim Langdon.
It's higher for a fourth day in 5 Tuesday. I'm Patrick Singleton at Bloomberg Radio in Tokyo. Here in Japan, chip-related shares such as Tokyo Electron and Advantest led gains after Texas Instruments said its fourth quarter profits will top its own estimates. And exporters like Sony also lifted the markets after the yen had its biggest drop in 2 months against the dollar. A weaker yen makes their goods less expensive overseas. The Nikkei 225 rose 0.3% to close at 92.05. Over in Korea, chip-related stocks like Samsung Electronics led gains after Lehman Brothers raised the company's earnings forecast. The Kospi climbed 0.9% to 736. While in Taiwan, the picture was much the same. Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing rose on the positive news out from Texas Instruments, and the weighted index soared 2.4% to close at 47.93. Meanwhile, in Singapore and Hong Kong, the markets are little changed at the moment, while in Australia, the ASX 200 index shed 0.4% to close at 30.72. Right now, one U.S. dollar buys you 124.63 yen, and that's a Bloomberg market.
An offer you can't refuse, one that could save your life if you act when you get the warning. This is Dr. Stephen Andrew Davis speaking of health. TIA, transient ischemic attack, a short period of time when the brain gets less than adequate blood flow, but not long enough to cause the permanent damage of a stroke. According to a review published in the New England Journal of Medicine, there is a high risk of stroke after TIA, and just because the neurological symptoms go away doesn't mean the patient is forever off the hook. There are many causes of TIAs that can also cause completed strokes, and some of these pathways can be blocked if the patient is seen in time. TIAs and strokes are often caused by clogging of vessels that serve the brain. Drug therapy to thin the blood can be life-saving in the case of threatened stroke, and such treatment can range from aspirin to intravenous anticoagulants. Patients with severely narrowed key arteries in the neck can have life-sparing surgery to unclog them, so-called endarterectomies. The bottom line here, then, is that people who think they may be having a stroke and then the symptoms go away should say, hey, that might have been a TIA, a temporary loss of blood flow to the brain, which needs to be followed up on right away. For a copy of this script, access our website, speakingofhealth.com. Speaking of health, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Davis for CBS News.
For the average consumer, acquiring computer software is an important decision, but buyers should beware. Some hot deals are leaving consumers burning mad. Why? Counterfeit software. Hi, I'm Dave Graveline for Into Tomorrow. Software industry reports say that nearly 1 in 4 software applications in the U.S. are pirated. Consumers who acquire counterfeit software may have a program that is missing key software code or contains harmful viruses. Microsoft says there are steps you can take to avoid being duped into acquiring bogus Microsoft software, like look at the price. If the price is too good to be true, then it just might be. And visit the Microsoft How to Tell website at microsoft.com/piracy/how-to-tell. Boy, they don't make it too easy, do they? Making safe choices today and into tomorrow, and inviting you to stop by our website when you have a moment at graveline.com for your chance to win some great prizes. I'm Dave Graveline.
Even though you pay Social Security, you probably don't know all the facts about it, like where your money goes, or how much your Social Security protection is worth, or how old you'll have to be to get retirement benefits, or how much you'll receive when you're eligible. But there is one way to get all the facts, and that's by calling 1-800-772-1213 for the free booklet, Basic Facts About Social Security. That's 1-800-772-1213.
Good morning, Europe. 7:59 Central European Time on your Tuesday morning. I'm Army Sergeant Hank Minitrez. You're listening to AFN's Morning Newswatch. And, of course, joining me this morning, Air Force Sergeant Steve German with wacky news.
Authorities in southeast Ohio didn't have to search very long for a burglary suspect. That's because he was found fast asleep in the house he's accused of breaking into. A man called police after confronting a burglar in his home. The resident told sheriff's officials that the suspect had gone into one of the bedrooms. When deputies arrived, they found the 19-year-old suspect asleep in the room. They woke him up and charged him with burglary.
Wonder if there's like a charge for sleeping in someone else's bed.
I don't know, but that certainly is...
intrusion.
Certainly is a rude awakening, isn't it? Get woken up and arrested.
Coming up on 8 o'clock, we've got this morning's headlines. Stay tuned as Morning Newswatch continues. Good morning. Good morning, Europe. It's 8 o'clock Central European Time. You're listening to AFN's Morning Newswatch. I'm Army Sergeant Hank Minitrez.
Live from the AFN News Center in Frankfurt, Germany, I'm Air Force Sergeant Steve German. Good morning, Europe. Here are your headlines.
For the first time, UN weapons inspectors know something's not quite right in Baghdad. They headed for a site yesterday where past inspectors had disabled and marked equipment. Now it's not there. The Iraqis say it was wrecked in a bombing raid in '98. The inspectors want to see it, whether it's wrecked or not. CBS News correspondent Mark Phillips is in Baghdad.
The UN inspectors know that what they really need here is what their predecessors got, a big break, a high-profile defection, or an Iraqi scientist with a conscience looking for a way out. Last time, though, it took several years for such an informer to emerge. This time, the inspectors know it probably has to happen in a few weeks. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Baghdad.
The White House concedes Iraq is in a no-win situation. If it says it doesn't have weapons of mass destruction programs, it's lying. And if it says it does, then it's been lying all along. In spite of what appears to be cooperation with UN weapons inspectors, President Bush is unimpressed.
So far, the signs are not encouraging.
President Bush says the inspectors are not the ones holding the trigger.
Responsibility of inspectors is simply to confirm the evidence of voluntary and total disarmament. It is Saddam Hussein who has the responsibility to provide that evidence.
The Iraqis have 1 week to report on all chemical, bio, and nuclear weapons programs.
Afghan President Hamid Karzai announces that some senior Taliban leaders have been arrested. He says the arrests were made about 5 days ago in southwestern Afghanistan. The AP's Ed Donahue has more on that.
Karzai refused to give details on the arrest, but added that ousted Taliban leader Mullah Mohammed Omar was believed to be hiding in that same area. The area is around Kandahar.
Oregon Governor John Kitzhaber formally apologized yesterday for Oregon's past eugenics law that led to the forced sterilization of hundreds of people. Girls in reform school, people in mental institutions, and poor women selected by welfare workers were among the more than 2,500 Oregonians subjected to sterilizations under a law that stood from 1917 to 1983. He's the second governor to atone for state eugenics laws after Virginia Governor Mark Warner, who also erected a memorial in May to the first woman sterilized under the policy.
Singer Liam Gallagher and several other members of the British rock band Oasis and its entourage were held for questioning after a fight in Munich, Germany that left Gallagher with several broken teeth. Gallagher's injuries over the weekend forced the band to cancel concerts in Munich on Sunday and Hamburg yesterday. Munich police say they detained 3 members of the group, including Gallagher and drummer Alan White, and 2 of their bodyguards on suspicion of assault, resisting arrest, and damage to property. It's 3 minutes past the hour.
U.S. European Command has a new face. The Marines handed some operations over to the Air Force, in a manner of speaking. Specialist Eric Whitmer saw the tale unfold.
In Stuttgart, Marine General Carlton Fulford turned over the U.S. European Command Deputy Commander Watch to Air Force General Charles Wald. The Relieving the Watch ceremony is based on a Navy tradition. Starting with Admiral Steve Abbott, who General Fulford replaced in 2000, the ceremony was Admiral Abbott's contribution as the first naval deputy commander for EUCOM to insert a maritime flavor and contribute to the jointness of the command. The deputy commander is second to the commander of U.S. EUCOM and is geographically positioned to focus on the day-to-day operations of U.S. forces across the command's 93-country area of responsibility. General Wald's previous position was the Deputy Chief of Staff for Air and Space Operations, Headquarters U.S. Air Force, Washington, D.C. From Stuttgart, Germany, Specialist Eric Whitmer, AFN News.
A South Carolina man with a history of drunken driving convictions pleaded guilty yesterday to avoid a murder trial set to begin this week. Jerry Carruth, who was brought into the courtroom in a wheelchair, admitted to a lesser charge of driving under the influence during a crash that resulted in death. Carruth had been convicted of drunken driving a half dozen times in the past 11 years. However, he often avoids jail time by saying he would never be able to drive again because he's severely handicapped and paralyzed. Carruth faces up to 25 years in prison and a $25,000 fine at his sentencing, which was not immediately set.
In your weather watch this morning, North and Central Europe can expect mostly cloudy skies and rain, highs in the 40s. Southern Europe, partly cloudy to mostly cloudy skies, highs in the 50s and 60s. And in Turkey, mostly cloudy skies and rain, highs in the 60s today.
And in today's exchange rates, $1 US buys 0.9875 euros, and 1 British pound costs $1.58. Morning Newswatch time is now 5 minutes past the hour.
In our world wrap, despite North Korea's open breach of its promise to stop pursuing nuclear weapons, the Bush administration is quietly paving the way for negotiations that might give the reclusive country oil, food, or other aid in exchange for verifiable shutdown of its bomb facilities.
The challenges President Hamid Karzai continues to face in trying to extend his authority beyond the capital in Kabul, Afghanistan, have been highlighted by problems he's encountered after firing 24 regional officials last month. In a few cases, the officials accused of corruption or incompetence have refused to step down, or they left after the deputies were promoted, raising questions about whether the ousted officials might still be in charge.
An Iranian university professor sentenced to death for insulting Islam appealed the verdict on the last day before it became final. The sentence had prompted weeks of protests by students who criticized the judiciary. That's your World Wrap at 8:06 Central European Time.
An admission of responsibility from al-Qaeda and the U.S. believes it's legitimate on a militant Arab website for the suicide bombing of an Israeli resort hotel in Mombasa, Kenya, and nearby, within minutes, the attempt to shoot down an Israeli charter airline with shoulder-launched missiles. CBS News correspondent David Martin says the U.S. had already figured out last week's missile attack.
Serial numbers on the launchers that were discovered at that site just outside the Mombasa airport are very, very close in sequence to the serial number that was found on a similar launcher that was discovered last May outside an airbase used by American military aircraft in Saudi Arabia. And in that case, a known al-Qaeda operative has been arrested.
The British and French governments have announced that a refugee center in France that became a stepping stone for illegal immigration to Britain will close at the end of December, 4 months earlier than planned. At a joint news conference in London, Home Secretary David Blunkett and his French counterpart Nicolas Sarkozy said the SSgt refugee camp would close December 30th. In return, Blunkett says Britain would grant working visas to about 1,000 Iraqi Kurds at the camp. He said some of the Afghan refugees at the camp who have direct family connections in Britain would also be allowed to enter the country.
Venezuelan investigators recovered 3 more bodies from the debris of a downtown Caracas nightclub destroyed by a fast-moving fire over the weekend, raising the death toll to 50. Officials say flames quickly engulfed the tiny nightclub, packed with hundreds of dancers but lacking emergency exits, triggering a panicky stampede late Saturday. 12 people were injured at La Guajira discotheque. Faulty wiring, a kitchen fire, or even a carelessly discarded cigarette are all possible causes of the blaze, which erupted near the club's entrance. The investigation continues.
The Carnival cruise line Fascination has set sail again after a good scrubbing, following a weekend cruise where nearly 200 people became sick while at sea.
I couldn't wait to get my family off. My son is so sick, he's back there with a barf bag.
The symptoms were the same as hundreds of others had experienced on other cruises. The Centers for Disease Control says it's a virus, but still a curiosity as to its origin.
There are more than 120 million cell phone owners in America, and sometimes it seems everyone is behind the wheel of a car near you, paying no attention whatsoever. CBS News correspondent Sandra Hughes says there's a new study out, and you guessed it, it's dangerous to talk while on a cell phone.
Harvard University's Center for Risk Analysis studied existing information on deaths and injuries, estimating cell phone use by motorists is causing 2,600 deaths a year. That's up from just 1,000 2 years ago. 570,000 injuries a year and 1.5 million instances of property damage are also blamed on cell phone use.
The cell phone industry questions the Harvard study, saying data is sketchy and not the worst distractions, suggesting maybe changing the CD player or dealing with the kids in the backseat more distracting than using a cell phone.
A strange story. Norwegian Bjorn Ludvig Mohn was flying his ski sailing kite over the weekend when a strong gust of wind made it seem more like the kite was flying him. The giant kite lifted the 25-year-old more than 30 feet off the ground in a gale-force gust until he let go and crashed onto the gravel playing field below. When the 75-square-foot kite lost some altitude, Moen let go and fell to the ground. He was battered but didn't suffer any serious injuries or broken bones. Lucky guy.
All fun and games until you play with a big kite. And coming up when AFN Morning Newswatch continues, we'll have today's European weather forecast, U.S. dollar exchange rates, along with business and financial news, and
an increased risk of terrorism means it's even more important to make sure you have a gas mask and that it fits properly.
how Kaiserslautern, Germany prepares for potential chemical attacks. It's 10 past the hour. Good morning to you.
Is crunching the budget numbers making your head hurt? For soldiers, family members, and Department of Defense civilian employees, help is available. Call your local Army Community Service and ask for the Financial Readiness Manager. They'll help you manage your budget and show you how to get out of debt. Want to save some cash but don't know the best investment strategy? They can help with that too. The cost? Just your time. Everything you get from the ACS Financial Readiness Manager is free. Make the call, get out of debt, save some money, and enjoy Europe.
City Colleges of Chicago Europe now offers you 25 of the most important core courses anytime, anywhere. All courses are offered in a distance education format by using the internet or video. Enrollment is open and continuous, so sign up whenever you're ready. Just visit your City Colleges of Chicago counselor at your education center for more information, or check out the website, www.ccc-e.org. Again, that's ccc-e.org.
Helpful hints for parents from USAFE Services.
A good physical education program provides children with endless opportunities for calculated risk-taking, creating self-challenging activities, and predicting and measuring successes.
USAFE Services Helpful Hints for Parents. USAFE Services. Caring is what we do best.
Looking for a website to answer questions about your tour in Europe? DutyEurope.Navy.mil is the solution. It answers housing, school, MWR activities, and education questions. Plus, it's got something for the traveler, wherever you may go in Europe. European destinations, directions on how to get there, and European life. DutyEurope.Navy.mil is the one website that has it all. Whether you're a soldier, sailor, airman, marine, or family member, there's something for everyone. Enjoy your duty in Europe, wherever you may go, and get the info you need. DutyEurope.Navy.mil.
12 minutes past the hour. AFN's Morning Newswatch continues. I'm Air Force Sergeant Steve German with a look at your weather forecast for today. At Bagram, Afghanistan, sunny skies today, highs in the mid-60s. Germany, mostly cloudy skies with light fog this morning and rain, highs in the 40s. The Benelux, mostly cloudy skies with isolated rain showers this afternoon, highs in the mid-40s. The United Kingdom, cloudy skies with fair winds, highs in the low 50s. In Spain, partly cloudy skies, highs in the low 60s. In Norway, cloudy and moderate gusts and snow. Stay off your big 70-meter kites out there. Highs in the 20s. In Italy, cloudy with rain, mostly cloudy in the afternoon, highs in the 50s. Turkey, mostly cloudy with rain showers in the afternoon, highs in the mid-60s. And in Hungary today,